Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Covenant Calendar. This is part 2 of Tequfah study. Welcome to the blood-ratified calendar count of the covenant. Count being specifically highlighted. It's what we do. We count until Yahusha comes again. The Tequfah, which is the circuit of the sun in the Mazzaroth, is what is used to regulate this timing on this earth. Tequfah is a circular tabernacle for the sun. We can read about that in Psalms 19, verse 4. And the word tabernacle is ohel in Psalms. That's the Hebrew word. So it's a circular dwelling place that the sun maintains. And it's called a tabernacle in English. This circuit, the Tequfah circuit, exists of 360 degrees. And because it's 360 degrees, it supports pi. Well, what is pi? You see the insignia up here, or the icon? That pi is how man understands the definition of eternity. And it is at this point of 360 degrees that is going to be likened to a belt buckle. Why? Because this is where the circuit starts and ends. This is where it hooks together. So you're going to be seeing a lot of this belt buckle idea coming up in these studies. So hopefully you can understand what I'm having to say. The Tequfah. Yahusha designed a tabernacle in the Mazzaroth. It's where this sun cruises around through the constellations. Why is this important? In Isaiah 14, we learn of the adversary's intention of usurping our worship intended for Yahuwah for himself. Let's read about it. Isaiah 14, verse 12. How you have fallen from the heavens, O Hallel, son of the morning. You have been cut down to the ground, you who laid low the Gentiles. Verse 13. For you have said in your heart, let me go up to the heavens. Let me raise my throne above the stars of El. Let me sit in the mount of meeting, that's the Moadim, on the sides of the north. He wants to be on the sides of the north, the Sephon, because that is the area that Yahuwah rules from. And yet Satan said he is going to be in control of the heavens, and he is going to be in control of the Moadim, and he's going to be in the place of rulership. That's his claim. And my question to you today, how has he done this? Or maybe I should improvise, how has he attempted to do this? Verse 14, let me go up above the heights of the clouds. Let me be like the Most High. Right there, he's telling you his full intentions. He wants your allegiance. Has he got it? Tequfah. The adversary has proclaimed that he would control the Moadim of Yahuwah. The importance immediately arises to understand the function and application of Tequfah. Will the adversary's counterfeit calendars be able to function with the Torah requirements for Tequfah? On the next slide will be a quote from J. Parkhurst's Hebrew lexicon. The word there you see, the upper one, is shuva. It's a returning. This is basically what the circuit of the sun demands, a returning to the place where it arose. Down here we see Teshuvah Hashaneh. This is the return of the year. It returns. It comes back to the place where it left. When the year being ended returns upon itself, the beginning of the year. So we see some points here. This black line here is the point of the last day, the 360th degree. That's where the return is. The very next day, shown by this blue line, is the first degree of 360 degrees. It's the first 24 hours, and it's also the first cycle of 360. Of course, this is before Hezekiah's sundial unit. We're going to be looking at that closely. Bereshit. That's what this blue line is showing here. Bereshit, in the beginning. This is the first degree of 360. Again, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. The first cycle was seeded from Zion. It was the seed of the week, the initial seed planted on this earth. Kodesh time, in the format of the first cycle within 360, was seeded onto this earth. It was not pulled out of the blue from nowhere. It was seeded from Zion. Do you remember when Moshe was instructed on how to build a tabernacle? It was to be built as the pattern in Zion. So with the days on this earth are with the pattern from Zion. They're seeded. We will be using this purpose-built logo quite extensively. On the covenant calendar logo, this outside ring represents Yahuwah's complete Shana over here, the complete 360-degree year. The inside portion of the covenant calendar logo represents Yahuwah's daily 24-hour cycle. We're going to look at some more details on the covenant calendar logo. Please notice the location of the shadow marker. Did you see this gray line? This is the day of Teshuvah, the day of the shadow, or the equinox, as we understand in our terminology today. The Teshuvah, or the vernal equinox, as we understand in English, is the day of the shadow marker. The next dawn is the new year, according to Yahuwah, as is written in Torah very clearly. And here we see in the green, that's springtime. That's the time of the greening. That's what Abib means, the time of greening. Then we have the summer solstice, and that brings along the summer season. And then we have the autumnal equinox, and it brings on the autumn. Then we see, of course, winter with that white stuff. Notice the belt buckle. It has gone 360 degrees and comes back to this day of Teshuvah, or the day of the shadow, the returning. This is what I would like to understand as the belt buckle. This is where the year starts, goes full circle, and clasps back together and restarts a new circuit. Now here I have shown 4 seasons. In scripture, it speaks of 2 seasons, summer and winter. So this is just filling in a little bit of details of what we see with the greenery and the white and the leaves going brown in the autumn. But the scripture speaks of 2 seasons. So again, I want to point out this gray line. I want you to remember this anchor point going forward, because this anchor point is all about what this study is going to focus on. This gray line is your focus for this study. It was seeded from infinity. Yahuwah lives in infinity. Yahusha created this earth and placed us into his infinity. It's in a 360-degree Shana, which is the word for year. So the covenant calendar logo, looking on the inside, it's the light season and the night season. I want you to notice here the 3 mixture levels of Boker twilight. There's 3 different levels, and it's dawn to dawn is 24 hours. Notice that arrow. At the beginning of light to the end of light. Both twilights are included in the light season, according to Yahuwah's words in Genesis 1, verses 1 to 5. Then have a look here. Here's the twilights after sunset. The 3 increments of light are integral with the light season by Yahuwah's decree. You can read this in Genesis 1, verse 5, chapter 19, verses 14 to 23, and chapter 32, verses 24 to 31. Again, we're looking at the 3 mixtures of a Rev. That's the twilight mixture, which we understand in English as evening. Then we have the night season. This is where the Mazzaroth, the 12 constellations, are king. That's where they reign. They rule the night. The Mazzaroth and the stars are the lesser light that rules the night. You see them there every night. Well, that's if there's no clouds, but they are the ruler of the night. So there will be a belt buckle analogy for the Teshuvah shadow point in ending the 360-degree circuit and initiating the new year. And it will be made visible here. Notice the arrow. This is what we like to call as the belt buckle. It's the point when you wrap a belt around your waist, this is where it comes together, right here. It's Yahuwah's Teshuvah, or the equinox, the day of the shadow. Now, we normally hear of Teshuvah where people are turning their lives around and turning from a life of waste back to Yahusha. That is a turning. Indeed, absolutely it is. But when you look up this word in the Hebrew lexicons, it has a direct connotation or direct linkage to the celestial identities in the sky. Turning, finishing a new or finishing an old circuit and starting a new one. This is the very, very specific day that it happens. And that shadow is registered on that day of equinox. We will be referencing different calendars and their buckle point of confusion and inadequacy. It is this point where the counterfeits are exposed. If the belt buckle placement is shorter or longer, as in more or less yearly cycles or degrees, it is a reference to the inability in matching up with Yahuwah's hyper-important celestial event. The Teshuvah, or equinox, is determined by a straight line shadow marked on the ground. Yes, there are various ways of determining it, but the most simplest way is when you have a stick in the ground called a gnomon, and it throws a shadow on the ground. That day you will find a straight line shadow. Has Yahuwah provided documentation of his tool belt to identify counterfeit calendar belt buckles? Speaking with Pastor David from Manna from Heaven this week, I was discussing the word count with him. And I asked him, Pastor David, what would happen if we didn't have the command in Psalms 90, verse 12, to count our days? What would happen if we didn't have that counting ability? And he said in his words, we would be severely disarmed to promote truth. Counting is very, very important. Proverbs 4, verse 24, turn away from you a crooked mouth, and put perverse lips far from you. Let your eyes look forward, and your eyelids look straight before you. Consider the path of your feet, and all your ways are established. Do not turn to the right or the left. Turn your foot away from evil. So you can understand this as the curved shadow also. On the day before Teshuvah, there will be a curve. On the day after, there will be a different curve the other way. And we are commanded to walk straight and to look straight before us. Follow that shadow. Speaking of straight, there's a straight line. And I have chosen to call it Yahuwah's 360-degree pi line to eternity. Why pi line? Because at the point of 360 degrees, that's where that shadow comes in with a straight line. That shadow marks the day of 360 degrees. That shadow with the 360 degrees, it's what supports eternity. Pi is a definition for eternity. Yahuwah placed us in eternity through a 360-degree calendar. 360 degrees are a form of counting. We're not just to count our days or our months or our years. We are to count our degrees also. So therefore I call it a pi line. What we're going to be looking at today, we're going to be looking at the lunar calendar. It stops at 354 days. Yes, we're going to be looking at their 13th month edition. That's coming up. But for right now, we're just going to have a look here at what we're going to be looking at in the study. Next up will be coming the 364 Dead Sea Scroll calendar. Notice I have the C and the E highlighted because this will be after Hezekiah's time, and this will be in our time, which is known as the Common Era. Yes, after Hezekiah, it was still BC. But I'm referencing the Common Era more as today, where we live today. How does this 364-day Dead Sea Scroll calendar match up to Yahuwah's 365 today? This is what's coming up. And we're going to be looking at the pre-700 BC. That's before Hezekiah. We're going to be looking at the application of the 364-day Dead Sea Scroll calendar before Hezekiah's sundial event. That's back when it was still 360 days and 360 degrees. How does a 364-day calendar match up with 360 days? You probably have a good guess on how that matches up. This beige outside ring will symbolize the counterfeit calendars that attempt to usurp authority. This ring effectively reveals their insidious evil characteristics. How? We'll have a look at that little red bracket that shows up in that space, that area without that beige ring. This lunar 354 cycle calendar seasonal void, notice it's a void because it stops at 354, is unacceptable in Yahuwah's kingdom. Yahuwah does not accept intercalation. Elohim has shown us in the Tumim, which is a perfection, that's one of the stones given to Aharon, and Elohim in perfection did not create a calendar with voids nor overlaps. Those are not perfection. Those are deficiencies. Yahuwah did not create deficiencies. He is perfect and nothing short of it. I want you to see again, in that deficient lunar area is Yahuwah's Teshuvah and the equinox. It's the day of the shadow. The lunar belt. Let's have a look at this clasp, this buckle point. Can relate to the equinox on that point. I want you to liken the belt to the yearly circuit. When threading your 360-degree belt through the loopholes around your waist and returning close to the original clasp, but not there, do you then connect this fitted belt to another belt different than the original dimension? You need just a little bit more so you get another belt and hook it in place. Is that what you do? Point to ponder. A lunar 354 centimeter or inch belt of a different length. Do you get two belts to make one? Does one clasp the original dimension belt to another belt? And I'm referencing the lunar 354-day calendar plus a 13th month. Do you attach another month, even though it's not written in scripture? Doesn't this, or when you attach this other 13th month, that does not qualify to flawlessly fit the body? Isn't that a problem? Or is that acceptable? How long will you use two belts on your body? Or will you get one that fits? How come people observe the lunar calendar that does not fit Yahuwah's outline, and yet when it comes to a belt, they'll just fit it in? Doesn't work that way. Would this cause an imperfect fitting, unable to contain the body, hence failing to fulfill the original purpose? A failure. What would a seasonal lunar void look like? We're going to have a look here at Yahuwah's complete Shoneh, a 360-degree year. And you'll see here again, I want to point out this gray line. This is the day of Teshuvah, or the equinox. That's where that shadow comes in. What does a lunar void look like? A lunar 354 clasp or buckle point cannot complete a 360-degree circuit as fulfilled by the Tequfah circuit within the Mazzaroth and the heavens. You follow this beige circle around here, and it stops at 354 days. It does not reach 360. There is a void here. Void and vacancy. Can we relate that to Genesis 1, verse 2? Tohu and bohu, confusion, emptiness, waste. That's what it is, tohu. And it requires intercalation. Will you agree to equate Yahuwah with a void? Now it gets interesting. Again, comparing this belt to a lunar belt. And yes, I'm using the pagan names purposely. Look at this belt here, and I'm going to ask you about the different lengths of belts when you put around your waist. When you get up on Sunday morning, you grab a belt that's 91 centimeters. I'm just picking numbers out of the air here for you, so just go with it if you can. Monday's belt, it's a different day. So you pick a belt that's a little bit longer. It's at 98 centimeters. Tuesday starts with a T. So you have a short clasp and is only 87 centimeters, a fair bit shorter. Wednesday's middle of the week, so miss, I guess you need a 93 centimeter belt. Thursday, you've been eating too much, so now you're at 99 centimeters. Friday, it's been a very good meal. You're at 101 centimeter long belt. And on Saturday, you're filling up. It's 102 centimeters. Is that what you do for calendar? You pick calendar dates that do not match, that do not fit your body. Liken this to calendar. With an uncompleted Tequfah circuit. Each completed belt circle is varied by its perimeter from the others. If these variable belt circles were lunar years, no one would qualify for Shoneh, or not one would qualify for Shoneh. Not one can repeat in a duplicated manner, not once, nor twice, and that's Shoneh. It's an uncompleted Tequfah, just like it shows right here, uncompleted. What seasonal appointment effect would adding another lunar 354-day year look like? How does that look? Starting where the last lunar year date ended, at 354. We will now buckle in the next 354-day lunar year. Look at the black arrow. It's 354, and it comes up, what? Short. Again, it's down here now. It's progressed further away from this day of the shadow. It's further away. 354. Now the end of the lunar year has regressed even further back into the winter season, farther away from Yahuwah's paradigm. When this happens a few more times, every 3 or 4 lunar years, the lunar year buckle is nowhere near Abib, the time of greening. Read about that in Exodus 9, verse 31, and chapter 13, verse 4. So, is there a solution to this out of sync season? Isaiah 14, verse 13 again. For you have said in your heart, let me go up to the heavens. Let me raise my throne above the stars of El. Let me raise my throne above the stars of El, above the Mazzaroth, and let me sit in the mount of meeting. Satan says he wants the allegiance from you to him, and he's going to control from the Tsephon. How has he done this? With his out of sync season. Rest assured, the adversary has provided an elucidation. What is his deception? We need to search no further than the 13th trump of the straight silver shofar that destroyed the foundation of Jericho. Was it the silver trumpet that destroyed the foundation, or was it at the sound of the silver trumpet? It has a frequency unmatched. Yahuwah used that frequency to destroy the foundation of Jericho. Jericho was the center of moon worship. What is the connection? Well, let's have another slide. Confusion of Yahuwah's paradigms. The adversary has introduced a contaminated system for his festal year. He must now introduce another evil lie to cover up the first falsehood, and that lie is intercalation. By reason of the lunar year persistently falling short of the seasons, it becomes necessary to install an extra unscriptural 13th month. This introduces another contamination, variableness. Lie upon lie upon lie. It doesn't stop. A blatant disregard of Yahuwah's covenanted paradigms. When is Abib 14 Passover? Depending upon when the optimal phase of the moon is spotted, there can be a variance in timing of 1 full month from year to year. Isn't that sound like confusion? Does Yahuwah say, well, next year Passover is going to be a little bit different than the year after that, it's going to be a little earlier? No, he doesn't. He says, Abib 14 is my season, my appointed time. It's my season. It does not vary. It is also a lunar allegiance requirement to disregard and discredit Isaiah 1, where Elohim provides his full estimation of lunar-based worship. Read it. It's a very clear message for the lunar system. On top of that is the need to ignore the foundation of Jericho, the city of moon worship, which was destroyed by Yahuwah on the 13th trump of the silver shofar. The 13th trump. Could that have any reference to the 13th month in the city of moon worship? The evil contamination of intercalation. Here's a scenario, and this is a true message that came to us a number of years ago. The message was, oh, the sliver moon was not spotted in time this year, so we will go to plan B and add in the 13th month. These are from the words of a very prominent lunar-based leader of this world, received in an email by his followers. It was forwarded to me. The moon was seen far too early, creating an Abib 14 Passover before the equinox. The plan B solution was to add an additional Metonic month, the 29.5-day month. Since it is very awkward to measure days by decimal points, it is rounded off to an even 30. Convenient, maybe? It almost looks like Yahuwah's month, doesn't it? So the question then comes, where did this prominent leader find plan B? Where is that in Scripture? It's not there. Plan B for Yahuwah's plan, his schedule, is not scriptural. That's man's estimation. When intercalating a 13th month, what will result, or what will the result look like for the seasonal appointments? Well, let's have a look. There's Yahuwah's Teshuvah shadow at 360 degrees, that gray line that we have there. There's the 354-day end of the lunar year, the black mark right there. Starting where the last lunar year date left off, we will now buckle in, as in intercalate, a counterfeit lunar 13th month of 29.5 days. So we see the additional lunar month right here. Now the end of the lunar year has progressed beyond Yahuwah's numbered shadow point of Teshuvah. Yahuwah told us, teach us to number our days, 360 eternity. Yet the lunar calendar has gone beyond that. It missed the target. It missed Yahuwah's target. Is that important? Depends on who you talk to. Is it acceptable to inquire of Yahuwah to reset his set-apart appointment of Abib 1 to accommodate Satan's counterfeit lunar-designed moed? Would he be agreeable to such a crazy thought? Genesis 1, verse 14. Shoneh is disregarded. This line here, the day of Teshuvah, is what determines when the year duplicates. When you add in a 13th month and you go past that, Yahuwah's border periphery, I guess you can say, has been disregarded. Are we allowed to disregard Yahuwah? That's exactly what's happened. Satan has declared he would control the Moedim. This is how he has done it. He has removed the day of Tequfah, I should say, he's removed the day of Teshuvah, which is the shadow, and he has given us a moon. Here, look at this. Our Creator created this. It's shiny. Follow that. Worship this. That's his deception. The evil contamination of intercalation. 354 lunar days in an additional 13th month equals up to 383.5 days. Where's that from 360? Quite an overshot, I think. Since 1/2 day is awkward, it's rounded off to 30. So 29.5 rounded off to 30. Convenient, isn't it? So let's bring in that green arrow, intercalating a 13th month. There it is again. We're having a look. 13th month, actually. A counterfeit 30-day month. Do you see that overlap? Again, it's gone past that day of Teshuvah with the shadow. With this variable scenario, Abib 14 on the lunar-based calendars can be a little over 1 month difference from year to year. Did you ever wonder about that if you're on the lunar calendar? How come there can be a month difference in Abib 14? Why? Does it make any sense? The 13th month, an evil contamination of intercalation. A few words about this 13th month. A 13th month does not exist in Scripture. Yes, we are told one is in Ezekiel 8. And indeed, if one accepts the Masoretic rearrangement of Ezekiel that we see today in the text, it certainly is there. Thus, if one accepts Ezekiel's numbering and dating as per when he wrote the documents, chapter 8 is the first chapter, according to Ezekiel. This also eliminates all possibility of a 13th month. Check it out. Do the calculations yourself. Also, another very interesting point, Ezekiel used H8141 Shanae no less than 28 times in his book, thus eliminating a lunar year, full stop. What about today's 365 plus? Consider the acclaimed 354 cycle lunar calendar or year has completed the lunar rotation, and the lunar new year begins. The Mazzaroth's remaining 6 degrees and cycles of rotation to complete 360 still need to find their assignment place in the tabernacle, the Ahel, the dwelling place in the circuit. So what is done when you have a 354-day calendar, but Yahuwah has declared 360 degrees? What happens to those remaining days and degrees? Where do they go? When they add another year onto the 354, what happens to those remaining days and degrees? Are they just not counted? Do we then incorporate intercalation, inserting a 13th month, which does not exist in Scripture, in order to allocate these 6 more degrees of rotation within the Mazzaroth? Do we find some confusion here, or do we find it acceptable just to throw the numbers out? Think about that. And then, do we ignore that intercalation is simply ruled out by Yahuwah's defined characteristics of Shanae? Rule them out? Well, he didn't really mean that. It's just a word. No, that word is not filler. He means every last definition of it. Do we then play God and create our own paradigms in the face of our Creator? Is Yahuwah's calendar not acceptable to you? And instead you have one that's man-made that doesn't match Scripture at all? Is that acceptable? The origin of the 360-degree circuit standard. Definition here, the completion of a year and the return of a year. The return. At the beginning, this earth was seeded from Zion with a 360 cycle per year Shanae repeating cycle. Yahuwah determined the start of this celestial rotation would be after the point of Teshuvah, or the equinox, in the northern segment of this earth. Notice it would be in the northern segment of this earth. Originally, Mazzaroth fulfilled a 360 cycle circuit from which the 360-degree completed circle standard was derived. Read that again. Originally, the Mazzaroth fulfilled a 360 cycle or day circuit from which the 360-degree completed circle standard that we have today was derived. Lunar advocates declare the lunar year existed at creation. Hence, the 354-day year with a 354-degree circuit, notice the question mark, must be recognized at creation also for this ideology to be truth. But it does not work out. 354 does not support eternity, or pi, 22/7, 3.14. It does not work out mathematically. Yahuwah does not accept that. Questioning completion before 700 BC. The word is Teshuvah. We're looking at Brown Drivers Briggs, H8666. He has, as definitions, a reoccurrence, an answer, a return. Then notice this one. Completion of a year, return of a year. It does not say almost part of, portion of a year. No, it's a completion. Point of departure to point of departure. It returns to that point of departure. Question. If, as in the lunar calendar, the sun traveled 354 degrees to the end of the lunar year, being 6 degrees or 6 cycles short of 360, does that qualify for completion? Does it qualify for a return? An attempt at best, but not a return, nor a completion. Is it but a failed attempt? How come we're taught this? And how many of us have accepted it? I was guilty at one point until I learned to ask questions. These scriptural witnesses, again, here is Yahuwah's 360-degree Tequfah shadow mark. The Tanakh and the witness of Yahushua HaMashiach's sandals all verify this day of Teshuvah. They both attest to the Tequfah circuit of the sun having consistent conformity to the perfect definitions of Shoneh. Genesis 1, verse 14. Shall we consider the Dead Sea Scroll calendars with permanent 364 cycles? Shall we do that? Shall we look at that? Do you think it's worthwhile? Before examining the 364-day Zadok calendar, it is important to consider their claim to calendar fame. They declare the 364-day count existed from creation. At this point, the 364-day calendar has a controversial issue with historic documentation. History declares the 360 degrees of a circle originally derived from 360 cycles or days in a year. That's what that little degree circle is above a number. It represented days previously. The first cycle, that would be Genesis 1, verses 1 to 5, was equal to 1 degree of the Tequfah. Enoch and Essene are similar in the day count of their counterfeit calendars. This section coming up will be 2 parts. The first will be applying the 364 account to 360 cycles and degrees of Shoneh at creation. The second part will be applying the 364-day count to the 365 plus that we experience today. Remember, days and degrees are entirely different. Questions to consider. Why is it that pi, that's 3.14 and infinity, why is it that pi cannot be found in the 364 cycle calendar? Why is pi, or 22/7, only found embedded within the 360-degree Shoneh-based calendar? Would it have something to do with Yahuwah inserting us into his infinity? If by default, the 364-day calendar was at creation, and the infinity factor for Earth was not then present, think of this question. When, then, did Yahuwah change his mind and insert pi or infinity onto this Earth? Was eternity optional, considered only after the future arrival of Yahusha? Would this concept destroy Bereshit of Genesis 1:1? So let's continue with our investigation here. Notice the belt buckle in the pink box. What would Zadok's 364-day seasonal overlap look like? Overlap. So right now, we're looking at the 360 cycle calendar or 360 day calendar before Hezekiah's sundial incident. We're going to be looking at this closely. Yahuwah, he had a completed Shoneh in a 360 day and a 360 degree year. Right there is your day of equinox, the Teshuvah and the shadow. There's that beige ring. Zadok, that's what the beige ring signifies. Zadok completes 360 days and degrees. And then it adds 4 more degrees. I hope you saw that belt buckle move in the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to back that up because I want you to get the idea. Zadok completes 360 days and degrees. And then Zadok adds 4 more degrees. Why? Because that's what they demand in their calendar. They demand a 364-day calendar, and it is mathematically solid. Problem is, it's not scriptural. They add 4 more degrees. They move the belt buckle. They overshoot the day of Teshuvah. And this is the time before 700 BC. It's during the 360 cycle year, a Zadok 364-day clasp or belt buckle point overlap. It overshoots Yahuwah's paradigm. Do you think that's acceptable? Does Yahuwah say, oh, you've done very, very well, except you've gone a little bit past my designation? Is that acceptable? Yahuwah says, I do not change. The additional 4 degrees and cycles beyond Yahuwah's established Teshuvah boundary. What's it say in Ecclesiastes 1:5? The sun rises and hurries back to the place where it arose. It does not say the sun rises and hurries far beyond where it arose. Accuracy is paramount according to Yahuwah. Can Yahuwah be equated with overcompensation? Or is this Satan? Let's get direct. Yahuwah does not accept overcompensation. Yahuwah is duplicating Shoneh, seed. It's a seed. 360 degree and cycle per year. This is before Hezekiah, remember. There's your shadow, your day of the shadow. There's the circle, goes around 360 degrees. Ecclesiastes 1:5. The sun also rises and the sun sets and hurries back to the place where it arose. It does not stop before, it does not overshoot. That day of Teshuvah, or the equinox as we understand, is constant. Period. It's recorded in history as being constant. It's recorded today as being constant. Teshuvah. Inside of the word Teshuvah is the word shuv, and it's to return by definition. Teshuvah. Naturally, it's going to return to the place where it arose. To the place where it arose. How does this eliminate a 364 cycle calendar? Yahuwah's Shana, a 360 degree year. Notice that's degree. Again, the day of equinox, the day of Teshuvah. Zadok's 364-day calendar completes 360 degrees, and then the overlap contamination arrives. Notice the number 4. That's the 4 days past 360. Before 700 BC, during the 360 cycle period, with an acclaimed Zadok 364 cycle overlap. That's what it will look like. Additional 4 degrees and cycles beyond Yahuwah's established Teshuvah boundary. This is vehemently not where the sun arose, not by Yahuwah's standards. So we're going to be looking at some year facts before moving forward here. Before 700 BC, one 24-hour cycle equaled 1 degree. Today, the National Institute of Standards Technology declares that there are 365.242196 days in our present civil year. So here's some information I scooped off the internet. Just jot it down. I'm going to go over it very quickly. National Institute of Standards Technology says again 365.242196 days. NASA over here says 0.26. Some physicists also claim 0.26. The Julian year was 365.25. The anomalistic year, we come down to this underline, was 365.259636. The tropical year, it was even a little bit less, 365.2422. And the sidereal or sidereal year is 365.26. I'm not going to read those quotes. You can stop this on the recording when you want and go through them. Also, every 4 years, 1 extra day is added to accumulate 366 days in a year. This means in a 365.242196 day year, each day is equal to, I want everybody to note this, 0.985647329 of a degree, almost a full degree. In a 366-day year, every 4th year, this changes to 0.98360655574 of a degree. A little bit of difference, no doubt, decimal point or 2. In this study, you will see the 0.985647329 degrees in the 365.242196 day year, rounded off to an even 1 degree. You will also see the 0.98360655574 degrees, which is in the 366-day leap year, that also is going to be rounded off to an even degree. That one will come further on in the study. These days will not be broken down into decimal points in this study, as the facts of non-alignment of other calendars within the calendar of the covenant will be made brilliantly clear without the need for the decimal points. Okay, let's continue on here now that we got those decimal points down. The Zadok dilemma before 700 BC. Yahuwah set the standard of 360 cycles per 1 complete circuit. This was and is equated by man to 360 degrees within one circuit. Before 700 BC, one 24-hour cycle equaled 1 degree. After 700 BC, this is after the sundial incident with Hezekiah, one 24-hour cycle equals 0.9856473429 of a degree. You get the idea. The Zadok authority dilemma. Is there a dilemma for Zadok? Before 700 BC, during the 360 cycle period, 1 year, there are still 360 cycles and 360 degrees. Because Yahuwah set this paradigm, we will be using his 1 cycle per 1 degree standard. Remember, just because Zadok claims to be correct, that does not change the standard of 1 cycle per degree. Zadok does not have 364 degrees in a completed circle. This earth has never had a 364 degree completed circle in its history. We will soon add in the 4 cycles, which equates to 4 degrees. Since the original 360 cycles and degrees standard has already been set by Yahuwah and has also been fulfilled, Zadok's 4 more degrees and cycles will be added onto the 360 degrees and cycle originally set by Yahuwah. I know there's a whole lot of words here, but there's going to be a lot of visuals to support these words. It'll come together. This addition of Zadok will be 4 more degrees and cycles over and above the standard set by Yahuwah. Look for Zadok's 4 cycles and 4 degrees addition to creation's 360 degrees and cycles for an overlap on Yahuwah's 360 cycles and degrees. That's pre-700 BC. We've already seen this. I'm going to look at it one more time, just so you understand. Just so you understand it clearly. Zadok does not trump Yahuwah. Note, for those that desire to use a 364-degree standard for a completed circle, they will need to look for another universe where it might exist. A 364-degree circle does not exist in Yahuwah's kingdom. Before 700 BC, that's before the sundial incident with Hezekiah, during the 360 cycle period, 1 year, there are still 360 cycles and 360 degrees. Zadok now claims 4 more 24-hour cycles added over and above 360. That equals 364 cycles. That's a 4-cycle overlap. Zadok proponents, or all Dead Sea Scroll proponents, will invariably declare 4 days of their calendar are not to be counted, forming a 360. The days of creation that are numbered by Yahuwah are not to be counted so that they can form their 360-day calendar. Does that make sense to you? There's days of creation, numbered days of creation, that they say don't count. These days they are claiming are numbered days from creation week. Which cycles from creation week has Yahuwah instructed do not count? Any? I don't think so. The Zadok dilemma. If Zadok wants to claim a 360 cycle calendar by not counting 4 days, they can do whatever they choose. Go ahead, claim it. Then they also need scriptural foundation commanded by Yahuwah that a numbered cycle from creation that has no count can then appear and be counted. You need to read that again? Let's read it. Then they also need scriptural foundation commanded by Yahuwah that a numbered cycle from creation week that has no account, according to them, can then appear and be counted. We will continue in Yahuwah's example in counting the numbered creation week cycles. 4 degrees equates to the added 4 cycles. The Dead Sea Scroll overlap. Now we can see Zadok had added 4 24-hour cycles. It's the equivalent to 4 degrees. That's Yahuwah's standard. Remember, 1 day equals 1 degree in Yahuwah's kingdom. That's pre-700 BC. So at this point, 360 completed cycles have received an additional 4 24-hour cycles, which equates to 4 degrees. That's Yahuwah's set standard of measurement before 700 BC. Yes, I know I have repeated this several times because I want you to see that it's an overlap and does not fit Yahuwah's paradigm, his Shaneh. It does not fit the circuit, the Tequfah circuit of the sun in the Mazzaroth. There's a contamination here, and I hope you can see that. I really do. In which kingdom does Zadok exist? That's a valid question. Before 700 BC, in a 360-degree circuit, Zadok now has 364 24-hour cycles and 364 degrees, which they claim as their calendar. Let's continue on. That's been repeated enough. I hope you've got that down pat. I hope you can speak about that to other people. Continuing to investigate Zadok's 364. Now we look at a 365 cycle year, which is still 360 degrees. This is what we're living in today, you and I as we speak right now. This is after the sundial incident with Hezekiah. Within this 360 degree and 365 plus cycle year, Zadok will insist on being correct. Let's have a look. Next slide, please. We're going to be exposing another Zadok dilemma. And when I say Zadok, that includes Enoch and the Essene. It includes the Dead Sea Scroll 364-day calendars. I'm using Zadok because it's most popular and for recognition purposes. But it's talking about all the 364-day calendars from the Dead Sea Scrolls. So post 700 BC, that means after 700 BC, after Hezekiah's sundial incident, with the 365 plus cycles and the 360 degrees. Let's have a look. Zadok, with his 364 cycles and degrees, now falls short. 1 full 24-hour cycle and 1 degree of 360. I want you to look at this red marker here. This red marker represents the 364th day of the Dead Sea Scroll calendar. It is 1 day off of, 1 degree away from the day of equinox, the day of the Teshuvah shadow. It's short. It's deficient. Zadok does not have a 364-degree completed circle. That does not exist, not even known to evil man. How do we know this? In another way, because they have to intercalate. If Zadok had a 364-degree calendar, he wouldn't have to intercalate to get to equal Yahuwah's 360 degrees. But because their calendar is deficient, it cannot match Yahuwah's 360, the Dead Sea Scrolls have to intercalate, bringing clarity to the Zadok dilemma. Post 700 BC, 365 cycles and 360 degrees. One more time, we have a look here. It comes up short. That red marker is short by 1 degree. Zadok's 364 is 1 24-hour cycle short of 365. That equates to 1 day and 1.01694915525 degree short of Yahuwah's completed 360-degree circle. And that's counting their season exchange days that are not counted. If you can understand that confusion, it's still confusion. It's still short of Yahuwah's paradigm. It cannot find alignment with Yahuwah's Torah. Now let's have a view of the 366-day year. It's coming up. What about that leap year? Searching history, we find that documenting the degrees within a circle was derived from the 360 days of creation. There is no such entity as a 354 or a 364-degree circle. 1 day of the 354 and 364-day calendar is the same length as 1 24-hour cycle in the 360 or 365 cycle calendar. It's the same length. That makes 1 lunar 354 day and 1 Zadok 364 day. It makes it equal to 1 24-hour day and 1 degree. If it were not equal, they would not have to intercalate. But because those days are set on the standard by Yahuwah, and they fall short of the Yahuwah's calendar, they must intercalate. This shows their contamination right there. Both calendars use intercalation. Both calendars are destroyed by that very same intercalation. We're going to have a look at a little bit of qualification here. Review. 1 day of the 354 and 364 day calendar is the same length as 1 24-hour cycle in the 360 or 365 cycle calendar. This is just a review. Just want to make sure you understand what's being qualified. That makes 1 lunar 354 day and 1 Zadok 364 day equal to 1 24-hour day and 1 degree. That's what we're qualifying. It matters not if a 201 or maybe a 423 cycle calendar is claimed. Strange calendars, and I have incense there, because if you remember the 2 sons that were giving strange incense before Yahuwah, Hophni and Pinchas, it was strange incense. It was not accepted by Yahuwah. And there is no difference between that incense and strange calendars that cannot align with Yahuwah. This is what I'm referencing with the word incense. Starting again. So strange calendars, they must align with Yahuwah's dawn and Teshuvah arrival, whether in a 360 or a 365 cycle year. They must align, period. If they do not, they are strange incense. Both identities have flawless timing, 360 and 365. They have flawless timing, and Yahuwah will not alter his kingdom factor for any god, nor human. Continuation of last slide. Is history a consideration? Is it possible that from creation, the dawn arrived at Yahuwah's selected precise time, no matter what human calendar was claimed? Or did man's calendar claims change the time when the dawn arrived? Maybe it arrived a little bit earlier for the lunar calendar of 354. Is that what happened? Did Yahuwah adjust his time for man? If the lunar calendar of 354 days had 354 degrees, it would be in its own universe. It would not need to intercalate to address its deficiency with Yahuwah's kingdom. Yet, for the very fact that because the 354-day calendar does not match up with Yahuwah's seasons within 360 degrees, it acknowledges by default, through intercalation, it acknowledges the authority of the 360-degree standard set by Yahuwah. This intercalation is an attempt to match closely to Yah's 360-degree standard. Shall we just accept intercalation? If the lunar calendar matched and aligned with the seasons using its 354-day year, there would be no need to intercalate. This intercalation is an attempt to match closely to Yah's 360-degree standard. Intercalation is an outward acknowledgement to the superior authority of Yahuwah. When you give your allegiance to a lunar calendar, you are declaring that Yahuwah does not have the ability to form a calendar in a perfect manner that stays with his seasons. You are declaring your creator is deficient. It's that simple. That's the bottom line. Does Yahuwah need intercalation? Let's put it in writing for Zadok and the Dead Sea Scroll calendars. When Zadok intercalates to achieve close synchronicity with Yahuwah's 360-degree standard set at creation, this also is an acknowledgement to Yah's superior authority. The explicit reason for intercalation is to achieve a close proximity as possible to perfection. Intercalation. Yahuwah does not need that. In fact, he despises it. Look at his word shaneh. It eliminates intercalation. So the question is, how many authorities are allowed in his kingdom? Just because Zadok claims days that do not count, and that same days that are counted, along with intercalation, does not mean that Zadok has a 364-degree standard of its own. If Zadok had an authorized 364-degree standard of its own, there would be no need for intercalation to fake alignment with Yahuwah's 360-degree standard. Intercalation eliminates itself by its very characteristic. Whose kingdom then is this? If Zadok had a flawless 364-degree, perfectly completed circle, which supported pi, or eternity, it would be from a separate kingdom, from Yahuwah's 360-degree pi-based infinitum. It would be different, because Yahuwah set the standard here, his standard. So isn't that what Hasatan desires when he spoke into Isaiah 14, verse 13? He desired a universe of his own. Let me go up above the stars of El. Let me sit in the mount of Moadim. He wanted his own universe. But he is not allowed to create. But he does intercalate, revealing a facade of exactly that, his own universe. It's a facade. Intercalation reveals a deficiency. By the very fact that other calendars use intercalation in an attempt to synchronize with Yahuwah's seasons, reveals their faulty system that must be regularly adjusted. They adjust their calculations to achieve being as close as possible to Yahuwah's 360 cycle year with 24 hours per cycle. If a 354-degree circle or a 364-degree circle existed, there would be no need for them to intercalate. Think on that very, very carefully. This factor applies to before the sundial incident with Hezekiah and also after the shadow regressed 10 degrees. Yahuwah's 360-degree standard did not change to the place where it arose. How does this eliminate a 364-day cycle calendar? Yahuwah's Shoneh, the 360-degree year. Again, we see the equinox, or the day of Teshuvah, the shadow. Zadok's 364 completes 360 degrees, and then the overlap contamination arrives. Before 700 BC, during the 360 cycle year period, with an acclaimed Zadok 364 cycle overlap. I hope you're beginning to understand the contamination that is here now. We've gone over it many times. The additional 4 degrees in cycles is beyond Yahuwah's established Teshuvah boundary. This is vehemently not where the sun arose, not by Yahuwah's standards. It is counterfeit, to be very direct. Yahuwah is repeating Shoneh, seed, the 360-degree and cycle year. There's the day of Teshuvah. There's the circuit. Hezekiah's words. No, let the shadow move back 10 degrees. He was given an option. He was given an option about the direction that the shadow could move, specifically the shadow. Nothing else. There was authority given to Hezekiah on the movement of the shadow. That authority was given to the shadow by Yahuwah. Hezekiah, what would you like? What's your preference? He said, no, let the shadow move back 10 degrees. It's all about the authority of the shadow. Yahuwah had something in mind already. That's why he gave the option for the shadow. Did he have it in mind that he was bringing the 365-day year after this? Think about that question and plan to watch Teshuvah Part 2, because Yahuwah prophesied this to Noah. After 700 BC, the civil 365 repeating Shoneh to do twice, 360 degrees, repeating time and time again. When there's a 365 and 366 cycles, as in a leap year, how can the year be considered as a repeating nature? The Shoneh format, how can it be? One has another day, and the next, if it repeats, it'll be a day less. So how can it be Shoneh? The location of the cycle of the Teshuvah returning in the Mazzaroth does not change. That shadow returns at a perfect time every year. More on this coming later in the series. The 360-degree standard remain steadfast. It does not matter if there was 360 cycles, 365, or 366. That shadow returned at the exact same position in the Mazzaroth. Will Zadok's 364-day count reveal an insufficiency for today's 365 civil year? Now we're talking the 365-day civil year. I kind of like to think of this as the 360 days are Yahuwah's festal year. And there was 5 civil days added on to that. Just one way of looking at it. The 365-day civil year. Here we see that Zadok completes only 364 days. He's short. 1 full day, 1 degree, very close to 1 degree, short. Zadok's 364 shortens the belt buckle. Is he allowed to do that? The time is after 700 BC. If a 364-degree completed circle existed, Zadok would not need to intercalate. He would be aligned with Yahuwah's calendar, but that's not how it is. The Dead Sea Scroll calendars must intercalate to come as close as they can to Yahuwah, but they still don't achieve that. Will Zadok's 364 count reveal an insufficiency for today's 365 civil calendar? Again, same question, but let's have another look. Does the full 360 circle? Again, Zadok completes only 364 days. Again, the time is after 700 BC, and he still shortens up to 364 days. He shortens the belt buckle. The 364 stops 1 cycle short of 365 and 1 degree short. This is at 0.98564734429 of a degree short of 360 degrees. There's a double insufficiency right there. Is Yahuwah not capable to match the seasons? Or is this Satan's deception? Yes, we must view Zadok's 364 count on a 366 cycle leap year. If we didn't view this, we would get the comment, oh, but it might work on a 366. Well, let's have a look. This is a leap year, 366 cycles. What happens? You already know the answer, but let's get a visual on it. Zadok, or the Dead Sea Scrolls, complete only 364 days in a 366 leap year. Zadok's belt is still at 364. It's still a belt buckle failure. It didn't reach the point of departure. And the 364 stops 2 cycles short of 366. And 2 cycles are and 2 degrees short of 360 degrees. It's a colossal calendar collapse. Again, what is dead in the Dead Sea Scrolls? Could it be calendar? This is Satan's deception, pure deception. Let's view the 364-day calendar colored in beige in operation. I need your attention here. There's going to be some animation. I want you to watch closely what's going to take place. I want you to notice the regressive locations of the red line in the 364-day new year. Watch the red line, how they regress farther away from the gray to Shuva line. Each year, they come up short more and more and more. Each year, The 364 end of the year moves further away from Yahuwah's shadow of Teshuvah. Each year shows more inefficiency, inability to connect or align with Yahuwah. After about 6 years of continuous retraction away from the shadow of Teshuvah, what happens next? Well, we bring in that line. What do we have? Intercalation. There we have it, intercalation. Our calendar is short, doesn't work, so let's intercalate 1 week for a season reset. Still doesn't align with Yahuwah's calendar, doesn't align with the words of scriptures. It's a counterfeit, it's a fake. It does not work. Not one of these 364-day dead years can qualify for the Shoneh assignment first seen in Genesis 1:14. Not one. Teshuvah and the return of the year, Shoneh. The Hebrew word Shoneh, returning upon itself in duplicate, eliminates both the lunar 354 calendar and the Dead Sea Scroll 364. Shoneh removes any and all possibility of intercalation. Full stop. Yahuwah's Shoneh year. A Shoneh belt, which is formatted by the Tequfah, as in the circuit of the sun, does not alter the clasp point, but retains the exact same duplicated point of fixture every year, time after time after time after time. This mirrored duplication factor, starting in spring north of the equator, is exactly what constitutes Yahuwah's year to qualify as Shoneh, or repeat a second time. Did creation's first year become Shoneh after 360 completed degrees? No. I'm going to read that again. I want you to think of this question. If the years are Shoneh, what happened on that first year? Did creation's first year become Shoneh after 360 completed degrees? No. Why not? I thought Adam lived 930 Shoneh. Notice that pink bar. I'm going to back that up and we're going to do it again. That pink bar goes 360 degrees around in a circle. 360 degrees supports pi, eternity. How come it's not Shoneh? Genesis, the first completed 360-degree year circuit of the sun, starting from creation. It's complete. Creation's first 360-degree circuit of the sun did not accomplish Shoneh. Why not? That's the question. But Adam lived 930 Shoneh, Genesis 5:5. Yes, the sun did indeed hurry back to the place where it arose. Why then was it not Shoneh? Not yet. H8141 Shoneh, or year. The root is H8138 Shana. To understand the foundation of how Shoneh functions, the root word meaning must be understood very clearly. Let's look at what Gesenius has for us. Over here, Shana, to repeat, to do the second time, to and second. Again, I'm just going to read under the underlines. Repeat, another, repeats, repeats again. To be changed. Oh, here's something different, especially for the worse. Those who change opinion, changeable. Used of unfaithful subjects, rebels, who sometimes take one side, sometimes take another. Well, we're looking at this 8138 Shana. It's the root of Shoneh. And in positive context, it is clearly a duplication and or a repeating process of like manner. Yet, in the negative context, a change of process or resulting manner is the undesirable outcome. Carry these thoughts forward to 8141, Shanae. Let's have a look here. Shanae, or Shana, from Gesenius, the same lexicon. What's he say here? Notice this, please. The course of the sun. Oh, I should back up. It says here, a year. The course of the sun. That's pretty specific. Compare with the Latin annus, which denotes a circle. And over here, a circle, a year. We come down here, 600th year. Shanaim, which is plural, denotes some years indefinitely. How come? Why is there no reference to the course of the moon? Why does it only state the course of the sun? On that note, why is there no scriptural word for a moon-based year? Why does it not exist? The big question at this point, at what point does the course of the sun become Shanae? Do you remember the root? Do twice. Repeat. Let's have a look. There's that pink bar doing its 360-degree circle. It's the first Tequfah circuit out of 360 days and degrees. It's the first one. Number one, you can see that clearly. A review. Creation's first 360-degree circuit of the sun had not yet accomplished Shanae. For Adam to be created in the creation week and live 930 Shanae, the first 360-day and degree circuit of the sun must be, by definition, it must be duplicated before it can be deemed Shanae. So what must happen for the first one to become Shanae? Well, there must be a second. It must be a duplication. There must be a mirror-like facsimile. So here we have number two. The number two circuit of 360 mirrors number one. But number two is not yet Shanae. It has not yet repeated. Creation's first Tequfah circuit, however, of 360 days and 360 degrees, has now been duplicated. It now qualifies for Shanae. So we have 2 years, one over here, duplicated by number two. The first one is Shanae. The second one is not. The second one must also become duplicated, so it can be called Shanae also. There's going to be a lot more on this in the upcoming study of Shanae in the future. Teshuvah, shadow, on the equinox, right there again, Teshuvah, shadow. This first 360-degree circuit of the sun could not immediately accomplish Shanae. Only when the sequential Tequfah accomplished a mirror quality facsimile of 360 degrees can the original become Shanae. It has to be duplicated first. There's another duplication. First one's a Shanae. Another duplication. Second one is a Shanae. Another duplication. Third one is a Shanae. Another duplication. Fourth one is a Shanae. And you probably guessed it, another duplication. And the fifth one is a Shanae. Duplication. It has to be. No duplication, no Shanae. So what happens when a lunar calendar comes along? And somebody wants to throw a 354-day lunar calendar anywhere in history. What happens to the Shanae before it? It wasn't duplicated. And the one before that, it wasn't duplicated. Kind of falls like a domino. Think of that for a while. More on that coming in future. Again, the Teshuvah shadow equinox. This is a duplication from the seed. You've heard us talk about the seed within a seed according to its kind. Then Shanae fulfillment is a seed within a seed duplication format right there from Genesis 1, verses 11 and 12. This is the seed. Yahuwah doesn't fail us. He's showing you, this is my seed. This is what I do. This is how I function. So what happened? Oh, no, I'll leave that. Look, we're coming up to that. Here's the seed. Bang. Number 1. Quickly. Number 2. Next one. Where's number 3? Coming up. Duplication. Duplication. Let's get on it. Bring them up. Duplication. Need more. No seed duplication, no Shanae, no kingdom. Period. If you do not have duplication, you do not even have a seed. The seed was not even allowed to sprout. Think about that when you think about the Dead Sea Scroll calendars that do not duplicate and cannot provide duplication, and the lunar calendars. No duplication, no seed, no Shanae, no kingdom. This is what you see here is 360-degree Tequfah fulfillment. And we're going to look at it quickly again. Here are 7 Shanae. Note the location of the gray, of the straight gray shadow lines. There is no variableness. We read about that in Yaakov 1 verse 17, or James 1:17. Note the Teshuvah equinox. Look at that line, the fuchsia colored line. I call it the Shanae gauge. Why? Because it gauges how far away that gray line is. It's perfect. There is no variation in Yahuwah's timing. That's what he says. There is no variableness. Ecclesiastes 1:5. The sun rises and also goes and hurries back to the place where it arose. There's your Shanae, your duplication, perfection. All time is gauged by Yahuwah's timepiece through the Tequfah and the Mazzaroth, all time on this earth. Note Yahuwah's yearly pattern matches the weekly cycles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, P, S. What does P stand for? We know what S stands for. That's today, Shabbat. Well, but what is P? Take this pattern to Earth's timeline below. Look on the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,000-year pattern. There's your seed from creation. Seed within a seed according to its kind. Your seed of the creation week was planted at creation. So is it okay to take off 4 days or 3 days? Is it okay to remove a portion of the seed? Let's continue looking. Look at Zadok's 364-day creation. That Zadok's 364-day creation week pattern. No longer is creation week a seed for the manna week test. Zadok deems it as acceptable for the first week to have only 3 days before the 7th day Shabbat. They do not count days 1, 2, and 3 of creation. This contaminated seed is now equipped to disrupt every new year with a repeated reset. Where do we find a reset in Scripture? It's not there. You can't find that in Scripture. You have to go outside of Scripture to another alternative to find that about a reset. The sun rises and overshoots Yahuwah's set boundary by 4 days. Did you see this pink line, this fuchsia line? That's your pi line again that determines that determines 360 degrees. These ones overshoot that area. There is no match. There's no alignment. Scripture. The Teshuvah equinox is disregarded for a fourth cycle beginning. And this here, this pink line, becomes a moot Shonei gauge. Disregard Yahuwah's Shonei gauge is what they do. So why the X? Why is there an X here? I thought there was a P for preparation before. Why is there an X here? Is that making any sense? Was there an extension before 700 BC? Teshuvah is still completion of a year and return of a year. If before 700 BC, the sun returned to its point of departure and traveled yet another 4 degrees or cycles, as in the 364 of Zadok and Enoch, past that point of return, being 4 degrees or cycles beyond 360, does that qualify for a base navigational failure and or a failed attempt to reset Yahuwah's proscribed paradigm? Are they playing God, wanting to remove Yahuwah from his throne of authority? Who would do such a thing? We know that. Back to the X. Why the X? Exodus 16, verse 4. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, see, I'm raining bread from the heavens for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day in order to try them, whether they will walk in my Torah or not. And it shall be on the 6th day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. Labor was required for 5 previous cycles in order to establish the 6th as a preparation cycle. Zadok's creation seed is a failure. They start in the midst of the week on the 4th cycle. This seed, if it was carried over to the manna week, they could only pick manna for 2 days, and they wouldn't have a preparation. Because in order to have the preparation on the manna week, they had to pick manna 5 days, so that the preparation they could pick double. Again, this is another Dead Sea Scroll 364 calendar failure right here. No preparation, seed. So what is another Zadok failure? The Dead Sea Scrolls claim is light was created on the 4th cycle. Let's have a look. Problem is, according to Torah, there was no creating, as the word bara, no creating of any kind performed by Yah on cycle number 4. Please search the Hebrew words for yourself and attempt to find bara, Beit Resh Aleph. I have the Hebrew down there below. Sometime you can stop this study and look at this slide and see if you can find the word create between Genesis 1:14 and 18. Look for yourself. Don't trust me. Prove it. Was there any creating done on the 4th cycle of creation week? No, there was not. There was no creating. There was a commissioning of lights, not creation. Yet, the Dead Sea Scrolls claims that light was created on the 4th cycle against Scripture. So what is another Zadok failure? Consider this false Zadok message. They claim that the sun, the moon, and the stars were not created until the 4th cycle. Okay. If the sun and the moon and the stars did not exist until the 4th cycle, keep that in mind. Yet Torah is clear. There is a perfect absence of creating bara recorded for cycle number 4. How then could the words in verse 19, and there came to be evening, how could that even exist, let alone be true? Zadok, you need to have a sun with sunlight that moves out of its position in the circuit, in the Tequfah circuit, so that an evening can come to be. But according to Zadok, they didn't exist until the 4th cycle. And according to Scripture, they were not created on the 4th cycle. So what is there? Is this another Zadok failure? What is there? If the sun, the moon, and the stars did not yet exist, according to Zadok, and by fault there was no light, is this what the 4th cycle looked like? Emptiness, void of light, no possibility of forming an evening twilight mixture. Is that what it looked like? That's a total opposite of what the Scripture tells us. Zadok, since the celestial orbs were not created yet, according to Enoch, where then, after Genesis 1, verse 20, do we find they were created? Where? There is nowhere. We have to go back to Genesis 1, verse 1, where Yahuwah created the heavens and the earth. It says he created the heavens. If the sun, the moon, and the stars were not created in the heavens, what was there? What was to be created? Do we discount the first 3 days of creation? Go against all Scripture? Drop the seed within a seed according to its kind? No. Once the Dead Sea Scroll standards are applied to Torah, it rapidly exposes an ultra-serious controversy. Enoch and Zadok belief structures are diagonally opposed to Torah. Coming back to Tequfah. When you get up in the morning, do you intentionally put on a belt that is shorter than the day before, even though the last one did not fit just yesterday? Compare that to last year. By claiming the 364-day calendar to be made by Yahuwah from creation, or even later, people are indicating a serious flaw in character, imperfection. This is blasphemy. We are told that we are not to blaspheme the name of our Creator. What is his name? I'm not talking the letters. I'm talking his character in his name. If we blaspheme his character, that is his name. That is who he is. If we claim a calendar that is not perfect, we are saying our Creator is not perfect and he's not capable of it. That's blasphemy. Yes, blaspheming the name, the character of the Almighty Elohim. Isaiah told us 7 times, if we want to understand the ending, we must know the beginning. So, if, as Enoch declares, the 364 was at the beginning, let's see how well it functions at the ending. What about applying Zadok's 364 count to Yahuwah's 3 prophetic timelines of Revelation? Shall we dare go there? Revelation's 3 timelines. Let's have a look. Revelation 12, verse 6. Will this have anything to do with the shadow of Teshuvah? And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by Elohim to be nourished there 1,260 days. Revelation 12:14. And the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle to fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the presence of the serpent. That's 3.5 Shoneh years. Revelation 13, verse 5. And he was given a mouth, speaking great matters and blasphemies, and was given authority to do so 42 months. That's the other portion of the timeline, 42 months, 42 Chodesh. So it equals out to 1,260 days, 3.5 years, and 42 months. This is three different standards defining one timeline. They all must function with perfection in accordance with each other to facilitate this timeline. In Yahusha's Revelation account, we read of 3.5 years, 42 months, and the 1,260-day timeline. The body, as in the chosen people of Yahusha and the bride, will be paying close attention to this prophecy. There will be 3.5 Shoneh, those are seeded from creation, and they have 360 cycles, and that will equal out to 1,260 cycles total. Again, in months, 42 Chodeshim with 30 cycles each equals out to 1,260 cycles. That is Yahuwah's announced timeline. Revelation's three timelines. 3.5 Shoneh by 360 cycles equals 1,260. 42 Kodeshim months by 30 days each, 30 cycles equals 1,260. A 365 cycle year produces at minimum 1,277 cycles in 3.5 years. This reveals a present inability to fulfill Yahuwah's 1,260 cycle timeline within 42 months and 3.5 years. Remember, they all have to function together. How does this work if there's too many cycles? Let's look at Yahusha's words, speaking to his disciples. Mark 13, verse 20. And except that the master had shortened those days, no flesh should be saved, but for the elect's sake, whom he hath chosen, he hath shortened those days. Which days will be shortened? It will not be the timeline of Revelation, because that has already been spoken by the voice of Yahuwah. It's already been said. It's as sure as if it had already been fulfilled. So what's going to be shortened? Was it the time frame of 365-day years that was spoken to Noah that was going to be shortened? Would we then be going back from a 365 to a 360-day year as indicated to Noah? The 365 plus cycle year will be shortened to 360 cycles in order to fulfill Yahuwah's spoken timelines. Isaiah told us 7 times, if we want to understand the ending, we must understand the beginning first. That's why we're in Genesis right now today. We must understand what's happening in Genesis. So we're going to look at applying Zadok's 364-day year to prophecy in Scripture. Do you notice the surprise? So here's the first year of Zadok. It's 364 days in a year. That's one time. Another degree, another year. There's the second year and the third year of 364. That's your times. And then we have the 1/2 year, half a time. We add up those numbers. It comes to 3.5 years. That part is good. But what about this part? It comes up to 1,275 days. Now, remember, Zadok's calendar is a mathematically solid calendar, mathematically perfect. Everything is there. If you take away days from that calendar, it falls apart. It doesn't have a calendar. So how is Yahuwah's timeline of 360 days per year with a 1,260-day timeline in 3.5 years? What's that going to do to Zadok? Zadok's 1275 days has no alignment with Yahuwah's 1260. Think of that. Is it going to get serious? Count on it. Whose prophetic timeline would you rather be on? Yahuwah has spoken. In the end, by these days, the 1260, he will retrieve his people from this earth. It will be accomplished through 1260 cycles. There's more, yes, but this specific timeline will be fulfilled with perfection. Would anyone care to guess where these people will be at 1275? Zadok? Will you be sitting on the rock at 1275? Is calendar salvational? Think about it carefully, very carefully. We're going to look at a small sample of Julian Morgenstern's historic documentation regarding the prevalent sunset and lunar belief structure for today. Check and assess if you can detect where massive confusion entered the present religious teachings that we hear even today. Certainly, history does not affect that which is written in the scriptures. It is, however, most interesting when a highly esteemed Hebrew scholar of Jewish descent who supplies foundational material for Judaism, writing in English, agrees fully with the word of Yahuwah in this particular context. So if you look on the right, this is the book that I have on my desk. I have pictures out of it from what you will see. It's the Hebrew Union College Annual. It was written in 1935. The author is Julian Morgenstern. He's the prominent one here, volume 10. Let's have a look what he says. He's speaking about the ancient calendars of Yasharel. I'm going to read this. A new stage in the investigation of the problem of the calendar of ancient Yasharel was marked by the appearance of a learned article by E. Koenig in 1906. This eminent scholar reviews carefully in detail the hypothesis and conclusions proposed by earlier scholars, who then advances his own conclusions. He maintains that, how many? 2 distinct calendars were current in ancient Yasharel. The first, a solar calendar. That's an interesting statement. The first, a solar calendar, was identical practically with that of the Phoenicians and the Canaanite predecessors of Yasharel, where? In Palestine. Interesting name. This solar calendar was well adapted to the conditions of the simple agricultural life which the Israelites lived during the first period of their sojourn in Palestine. It reckoned the day from what? It reckoned the day from sunrise. Well, we'll forgive him for not saying dawn, but he's come pretty close. Interesting. It reckoned the day from sunrise and the year from the appropriate date in the fall. Well, I don't agree with that statement, but it employed the old Canaanite Phoenician names of the months. These were solar months of apparently 30 days. Note that. 30 days respectively. At first, the New Year's Day continued to be celebrated in the fall, originally upon the 7th month, the 10th day, but later upon the 7th month and the 1st day. Interesting. There's been a change. Who changes that? And eventually, however, the New Year's Day was transferred to the 1st month, the 1st day. Transferred. New Year's Day. Moshe, did you get the memo? Continuing on. This latter system of dating and celebrating the New Year's Day, however, did not supplant the older method of celebrating this important festival upon the 7th month, the 1st day. For quite a long period, both systems seems to have existed simultaneously. Eventually, however, The later system succumbed to the older system, and ever since, the New Year's Day has been observed in the Jewish calendar upon the 1st of Tishri. That's 7th month. This second calendar, that's interesting. I thought Yahuwah said he didn't change. This second calendar was obviously based upon Babylonian models and was adopted, there's a big word, under direct Babylonian influence at about 600 BC, when the Babylonian religion and general culture began to affect with steadily increasing force the Jewish exiles in Babylonia, and through those of them who returned from the exile, the Jews who had remained in Palestine. Now, that phrase has got a lot to be said behind that one, but we'll leave it there for now. Continuing on. The second calendar was a lunisolar year, which operated with lunar months alone, and in consequence, must have had some system of intercalation. Interesting. By which the lunar and the solar years were harmonized. These lunar months were designated at first by ordinal numbers, first month, second month, etc. But eventually the Babylonian month names, Nisan, Iyar, etc., were equated with and frequently substituted for them. A lunisolar year naturally necessitated increased cognizance of the moon and its phases. Now I want you to pay close attention to these words. The day now came quite naturally to be reckoned from sunset, and the day of the full moon in each month came to play an increasingly important role in the calendar organization, so that the Passover Mazzaroth festival and the Sukkot festival were transferred, really, were transferred. I wonder if they got permission from Yahuwah to do that. They were transferred from their original moments of celebration to what? To the full moons. Allegiance to the moon. To the full moons of the 1st and 7th months, respectively. At first, the New Year's Day continued to be celebrated in the fall, originally upon the 7th month of the 10th, but later upon the 7th month on the 1st. What about in John 7, verse 6, when Yahushua was speaking and the topic was calendar? The context was totally about calendar and timing. Here's Yahushua's words. Yahushua therefore said to them, my time is not yet come, but your time is always ready. That word for always ready is ethmos. That's where we get it out of the Greek. And what is the meaning? Adjustable. Was there anything that you just saw in the last two slides that suggested to you in any form that there was adjustments made to the calendar? Yahuwah says he has no variableness in him. Selah. Take pause. Consider. Consider this information from the last few slides. Next, thoughtfully process these historic records in the perspective of the words of Moshe. There's a few more slides with me. Bear with me here. We're going to read it and look at the words of Moshe. Moshe's words are as solidly applicable today as they were back then. Let's read them. We see that word shuv, the Hebrew word from which teshuvah arrives. Deuteronomy 30, verse 8, and you shall teshuv, turn back and obey the voice of Yahuwah and do all his commands, which I command you today. And Yahuwah your Elohim shall make you have excess in all the work of your hand, in the fruit of your body, and in the fruit of your livestock, and in the fruit of your ground for good. For Yahuwah turns back to rejoice over you for good, as he rejoiced over your fathers. And if you obey the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim, to guard his commands and his laws, which are written in this book of the Torah, if you turn back to Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, for this command which I am commanding you today, it is not too hard for you, nor is it far off. Is it not in the heavens to say, who shall ascend into the heavens for us and bring it to us, and cause us to hear it, so that we do it? Nor is it beyond the sea to say, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it to us, and cause us to hear it, so that we do it? For the word is very near you. I'm going to read that one again. For the word is very near you, in your mouth and in your heart, to do it. See, I have set before you today life and good, and death and evil, in that I am commanding you today to love Yahuwah your Elohim, to walk in his ways, and to guard his commands and his laws and his right rulings. And you shall live and increase, and Yahuwah your Elohim shall bless you in the land which you go to possess. But if your heart turns away, and you do not obey, and shall be drawn away, and shall bow down to other mighty ones and serve them. Think about those quotes we just read. And bow down to other mighty ones and serve them. I have declared to you today that you shall certainly perish. Shall I stop here, or shall I continue? You shall not prolong your days in the land which you are passing over the Yarden to enter and possess. I have called the heavens and the earth as witness today against you. I have set before you life and death, the blessing and the curse. Therefore, you shall choose life, so that you live, both you and your seed, to love Yahuwah your Elohim, to obey his voice and to cling to him, for he is your life and the length of your days, to dwell in the land which Yahuwah swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov, to give them. Now I have a question. With Moshe's words in mind, with the study that you just saw, with the quotes from Julian Morgenstern, with Moshe's words in mind, shall we question, to whom does the preparation of the Yahudim declare their allegiance? When you read those words, preparation of the Yahudim, John 19, verse 42, what calendar was that? He lays claim to that calendar even today. According to Scripture, to correctly understand the preparation of the Yahudim, we have some extremely important investigating to accomplish first. Next, we will examine what regulates Yahuwah's Tequfah, the power and the strength and the promise of Teshuvah. And I can assure you, this is going to get interesting. Did I mention Noah? 365-day year. We will be going back to 360 so that the time frame of Revelation can be accomplished according to Yahuwah's spoken word. Are you watching your shadow? Are you marking your shadow? Or are you going to need oil when that time comes? Will you be out of oil? Or will you have put oil in your lamp by marking that shadow to understand the timing of the end? Yahuwah's Tequfah is regulated by the Teshuvah, the day of the shadow, and is the Melchizedek order of function back then and today. The equinox is the cycle of the straight line shadow. This is the end of part 2. If you need assistance with this information before the Teshuvah study, please send your questions to me, Timothy Asselford, at questions@studythecalendar.com. I say thank you very much. I know this has been a very long study, but the information had to be laid out. I hope this was a blessing to you. I say Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for joining me.